Assalamu alaikum. I am an ex-Ismaili, like yourself. I did not want to pass on those lies to my children. So, I left the Jalmat few years ago. My question is that, can you prove the Islamic Salah in the light of the Quran and also disprove the Dua in the light of the Quran? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I am aware of at least 4 points from the Quran which directly contradict with the Ismaili dua. But before I answer your question on those 4 points, I'd like to highlight one really unique feature of the Ismaili tariqah. This unique feature is the cost of prayer. So you pay a membership to attend, say, the Naumi Majlis or the Life Majlis, you pay more money, the Nurani, you pay even more money. So this concept of charging money for prayers is not there in any religion that I'm aware of. And it's not there in Islam too. Everybody prays together, everybody gets to pray. Because prayers is the right of the rich and the poor. God does not judge you on the amount of money you have. But in the Ismaili tariqah, you pay money to pray. Now coming to your main question, does the Ismaili dua contradict with the Quran? The answer is yes, in at least 4 aspects as I mentioned, and I'll take each of these aspects one by one. So the first aspect is the wash before the prayer. In the Quran, in chapter 5 verse 6, it clearly states that, "O ye who believe, when you prepare for prayer, wash your faces, your hands up to the elbows, rub your heads with water, and your feet up to the ankle." The simple evidence of this implementation is still present in the old Jamaat Khanas built under Sultan Muhammad Shah, especially in Southeast Asia. And they still have separate places for doing the wudu before you enter the main Jamaat area. But the sad state of affairs today is that there are multi-million-dollar Jamaat Khanas built all over the world, and none of them have these facilities to wash before prayer. The second point of contradiction with the Ismaili prayer is the positions. Now, if you notice, in the Islamic prayer, they do the ruku or the bowing down and the sujood or the prostration. The Ismaili prayer does not do the bowing down, but still does the sujood. Now, if you refer to the Quran, in chapter 22, verse 77, it clearly says, "O ye who believe, bow down," which is ruku, and prostrate, which is sujood, yourselves and worship the Lord. So the Quran clearly gives a direct order of bowing down and prostrating for doing your prayer. But the Quran also mentions, chapter 77, verse 47, that woe unto the rejectors of truth on the day when it is said to them, "Bow down," they bow not down. With these 2 verses, it is very clear that the prayer has to consist of both prostration and bowing down. But the Ismailis only do the prostration and not the bowing down. The next point of contradiction is the direction of prayer. In the Quran, in chapter 2, verse 144, it asks Muslims to pray towards Mecca. The Quran, chapter 2, verse 150, gives us the reason why. The reason is unity. It is very clear that everybody, wherever you are, should pray in the direction of Mecca. But if you go to the Ismaili Jamaat Khanas, they are directed in any direction. And even if they are directed towards Mecca, the mukhi or the kamaria or the people that sit in the front face the Jamaat. So they are facing in the opposite direction. So even if the entire Jamaat is facing towards Mecca, the mukhi and the kamaria and the kamariyanima and the mukhiyanima are all facing towards the Jamaat, which is opposite of Mecca. But in most cases, the Jamaat Khanas are directed in any direction. There is no specific direction. As an institution, the Ismaili Jamaat does not pray towards Mecca, which is in direct contradiction with chapter 2, verse 144. And the next point of contradiction is the number of times a normal Muslim prays and the number of times the Ismaili Jamaat prays. In the Quran, chapter 20, verse 130, it says, "And exalt with praise your Lord before the rising of the sun and before its setting, and during periods of night and at the ends of the day." It's dual plural. Arabic has dual plural, so it's two ends of the day. So this verse is very clear, and it gives us 5 distinct times to pray. Now there's another verse in chapter 11, verse 114, where the Quran says, "And establish prayer at the two ends of the day and at the approaches of the night." And the next verse would be chapter 30, verse 17. "So glorify Allah in the evening and in the morning, praise due to Him alone in the heavens and the earth, and in the afternoon and at the declining of the day." This talks about 4 times. So totally I've given you 3 verses. One talks about 5 times, one talks about 4 times, one talks about 3 times. There are also verses that talk about 2 times, and so on. Let me give you an example here. So if your teacher says, "Do your math homework," and then later says, "Do your geography homework," does that mean that you only do the geography homework or only do the math homework? No, it means you do both. So similarly, when in the Quran it says, "Pray at so and so time," and then in another verse it says, "Pray at so and so time," you have to pray at all the times totally mentioned. If you collect all the verses together, the distinct number of times that the Quran mentions is 5. So you pray 5 times. But if you see the Ismaili Jamaat, they pray 2 times. Many people will try to make you believe that no, we do pray 3 times. It was the case during the beginning of Karim Aga Khan, but it's not the case anymore. The count of prayers directly contradict with the Quran. And finally, one last point I'd like to bring to your notice. If you ask any Muslim, whether Ismaili or non-Ismaili, which is the biggest sin in Islam, and all of Muslims will say associating partners with God. That is, trying to say someone is equal to or has the powers of God. Now, if you notice, in the Ismaili dua, they say the first surah of the Quran, where it says, "Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in," which means you I worship and you I ask. But after the dua is over, you will notice that the Ismailis, they ask from Aga Khan saying, "Ya Noor Maulana Shah Karim al-Hussaini Hazri Imam, give us health, give us wealth, give us happiness," and so on and so forth. And the whole Jamaat together says Ameen to that. Now this not only contradicts with the Quran, this contradicts with the first part of the dua itself, which is associating Aga Khan equal to God, where he can answer your prayers. The truth is, he is another human being, just like you and I, and he has no powers as compared to Almighty Allah. And this is one thing I would request every Ismaili to ask themselves, whether they want to pass down these values to our children. Hope that satisfactorily answers your question.